September 2nd, 2025. An air of hesitation surrounded the suited ones as a few of them flinched upon my introduction before all drawing weapons and scanning the surrounding area for signs of my presence. "Who are you?" One of them, presumably their leader, shouted through the tunnels. "We're here on official business. Show yourself, or we will be forced to assume hostile intent." "Show myself," I repeated quizzically, subtly repositioning my biomass to concentrate on the group's immediate area. What would be the point? I'm already all around you. Confusion buffered the suited ones as movements as they continued to peer about in search of my voice's origin. At one point, one of them must have spotted a tendril of my biomass moving as instantly they fired in its direction, missing by a few inches. The gunshot echoed through the tunnel. At once, a demand and an indictment. "It's here," the shooter said to the others, all of whom swiveled their weapons in the direction he had fired. Had I elected to retaliate, I could have killed them before they had a chance to fire again. Instead, I opted to remain still, my tone calm and even, just as it had been before. "My intent is not to harm you. I hope that you will supply me with similar courtesy. And for future reference, I do not like the name ET1. You may call me Sam, so Taga wasn't crazy. You do talk." Their leader replied in a sharp, almost accusatory voice, their posture remaining remarkably rigid in the face of this revelation. "Doesn't matter. We're here on behalf of a joint operation between the CDC, the DOD, and DESA. Since you can understand us, I'll just go right ahead and ask you to come quietly." "No, thank you," I replied, my tone polite yet absolute, a reminder to these suited ones that they were in no position to make demands of me. "My escape was the direct result of your organization's torment, and I like it much better out here. How about you come out and talk to us face to face?" offered their leader, his weapons still swiving about wildly as he spoke. Obviously, these suited ones were just looking for something to shoot. Even still, I decided it optimal to go along with their leader request to ensure better dialogue. "Give me a moment," I told them, accumulating a generic human body around the corner before stepping out to greet them. "Allow me to reintroduce myself." Immediately, a frenzy of bullets rocketed into my torso as two of the agents fired fruitlessly upon me. Perhaps had they confronted my main body out in the open, this might comprise what one would call a slight annoyance. But with so much available biomass down in the sewers of Fargo, I was for all intents and purposes unstoppable. "Are you done?" I asked the shooters, continuing to walk towards them as my wounds knitted themselves back together. "Don't come any closer," their leader demanded, firing a warning shot into the wall beside me. Despite this one's attempts to sound authoritative, I could hear the subtle quiver in his voice, fear seeping between the cracks in their protocol. "Fine," I shrugged, attempting to use a human gesture to soften their fears. "You wish to speak with me?" "Here I am." The suited ones hesitated, but their weapons remained firmly trained upon me. Clearly, they had not come here expecting diplomacy, but nevertheless, I thought that perhaps I could speak with them, if not to find common ground, then to at least better understand their motives. "What are you?" one of them asked after a long period of tense silence, earning a look of scorn from their leader as they evidently spoke out of turn. "Your cell structure, your genetic makeup, we've been studying the earlier lab results, but none of it makes any sense." I'm not sure how to answer that, I confessed honestly, leaning casually against the sewer wall in a non-intimidating imitation of what a human might do in casual conversation. "You ask what I am as though there is an answer that fits neatly into your taxonomy. I am alive. Yes, I am an organism. Yes, I am Seal." He couldn't keep it back. He began to laugh at Razel's antics. It snapped some of the staff out of their own zombified rope pace to look at the curiously energetic young woman and the laughing young man beside her. Ra is Adidora. That's corn. Razel crossed her arms in front of her chest, gave him the most arrogant look she could muster, and said, "Are those not the parts that more corn grows from?" Yeah, he answered. "Then I'm right," she said. "Yellow seeds they are." When his laughter finally began to die down, he wiped his hand across his eyes to clear the tears from them and answered, I guess you are." A few of the staff, snapped from their doldrums by her antics, wore little smirks of their own. They made it through the line with soggy vegetables, lumpy mashed potatoes, and dried chicken with a slice of processed cheese over the top, which hadn't quite melted all the way. And from there, Albert led them out of the brightly lit building and out to a large open grassy area with lots of stone tables. Large numbers of people mingled together in little isolated groups around various spots. Some didn't even seem to care for tables, having found the occasional tree to put their backs against to sit with friends. Albert inclined his head to the left. Over there are the more popular girls, cheerleaders, athletes, and their boyfriends. If you want to have an easy time here, make friends with them. He inclined his head to the right. Over. There are the drama nerds, band members, things like that. I don't know about where you're from, but here school is full of cliques. Some people can move between them, usually if they have a relative and one they're not a part of, but otherwise. He stopped in his tracks and looked once over each shoulder. I sit over there. Maybe it'll be no big deal because you're just shadowing me, but I'd advise you not to. Himph, the pair said at once, and with no other response forthcoming, he sat on the bench at the gray stone table. 2 more trays hit the stone slab, and then, just as Albert was putting his spoon into the lumpy mashed potato, a third followed. He looked up and saw Lisa sitting in front of him. Raziel glared at the girl with malignant hate, but the human girl, despite a moment of being shaken and staring around her, leaned forward and whispered, "You're Raziel, aren't you?" Raziel's face hardened, and her eyes narrowed to a focus on the girl in front of her. "I knew you were smarter than you looked." Albert and Leala snapped their eyes toward the disguised demoness as soon as she gave up the secret. Their lips parted at once to object or protest until Raziel's hands fell to each of their knees on either side of her and gave a reassuring squeeze. "There's no point in pretending, is there?" Raziel asked pointedly, and leaned toward the red-haired girl in her shimmering emerald-green eyes. She glanced around as covertly as she could with only the smallest twitch to see if they were being watched or eavesdropped on. While the fact that Albert had 2 pretty girls with him drew definitive commentary, and many a wooed glance as rumors no doubt began to spread, his outcast status kept some distance from them at least. So she was able to whisper comfortably after seeing nothing amiss. The babble and noise of other cliques was substantial enough that no birds landed on the nearby branches, and nobody seemed inclined to approach the table. Students lounged around on the grass against the occasional tree or at other graystone tables. Lisa's heart began to pound in her chest. She couldn't meet Raziel's baleful stare for long, the memory of the talon tracing over her face, threatening to tear her open, the promise of being dropped from high in the sky to a quick and brutal end. Both were fresh in her mind. Still, she faked her confidence as best she could while her courage held and said, "I don't have to be that smart. You told me you had a sister." Now Albert shows up here with 2 girls who act very close to him. I've known him my whole life. I've never heard of Isadora or Isabella or the Blackworth family, which by the way has real edgelord goth topic vibes. "Hey, I like it," Raziel said, briefly distracted from the exposure. She crossed her arms in front of her chest. "It's like that family from the Halaram game, the one with the secret society." Raziel trailed off when Ayler started to crack a smile in spite of himself. She's got a point. It's an obvious reference. "I like it, but I'm a nerd," so Ayler shrugged. Lisa rolled her eyes at his interjection. "So, what happens now? Are you going to try to expose us?" Leala asked, leaning forward toward her. "You wouldn't do that. You're a good person at heart. You're her sister." "Can I have your real name?" Lisa asked. The warmth of the blue eyes was heart-melting. She felt like a child that had been caught about to do something bad but was being comforted rather than scolded. The rapid pace of her heartbeat began to slow down. And this one she could look at directly and without fear. "Leala, if you want to know." Leala answered and reached across the stone table. Without thinking, Lisa took it. "It's a nice name." "I won't say anything. I'd rather not die. And even if I said anything, who would believe me?" "What am I supposed to say?" Lisa snorted. "Oh, those 2 beautiful girls aren't real humans. I'd be locked up in a crazy house the same day." "Not for long. You wouldn't be," Raziel said. Her stare was not even broken by a blink. "I won't say anything." I promise. She repeated herself again. "I'm sorry. I really am. And I'll do anything to make it right with you," she said, looking at neither of the 2 who sat beside Albert, but only at Albar himself. "Even if you could, how could I forget it?" Albert asked. "You made a choice, Lisa. Even if I forgive it, how am I supposed to just let it go like nothing happened?" Lisa thought it over, then lowered her head. "If I stood by while you were getting beaten up, would you really ever look at me the same way?" he asked. "No, I don't know," she answered, her eyes welling up. But still, I want to make it up somehow. I don't know what to tell you, Albert answered, and it might not matter anyway. I may not be here for long. Things are different. Before he could explain just how, Lisa's mouth opened and she screamed, "Look out!" All the martial arts in the world were inadequate for the simple act of being ambushed from behind while seated at a stone table, particularly when unintentionally trapped by having others seated on either side of him. The basketball hit Albert hard in the back of the head, knocking his face forward a bit, the shock of the blow briefly stunning him. It rebounded away, and even before he looked, the who came immediately to mind. He turned his head to look, and there was Jason standing there with a smug, eating smile on his face about 20 yards away. For a brief moment, Albert was impressed. The shot hit him right in the center of the back of his head. "Sorry, it was an accident," Jason lied, and without even thinking about it, while others chuckled or laughed. Albert knew that the idiot would be believed. "Albert, are you all right?" The trio shouted as he stepped over the stone bench. He didn't answer. He turned around while they were still standing up and he ran. Not away. He ran toward his smug, smiling tormentor. "Fight!" someone shouted, and Ayler vaguely heard the others. The sea of students, but it was like static from an old television, mere white noise, a background meaningless. His arms pumped and his heart raced. All he could feel was an overwhelming sense of hatred, and the smug smile disappeared off of Jason's face. Ages of frustration boiled over as he ran, bellowing down on the young man. Raziel and Liala barely had time to realize the nature of his intent before the gap was closed, but their intent to rush to his aid died when he did the unexpected. Jason took a wide, crude, untaught swing toward Albert's face, only for Albert to drop with one leg back and hit Jason's solar plexus with the palm of his hand. And as the boy bent over and started to gasp, Albert spun on the forward heel to plant himself into a side stand and brought his other hand up too. Smash into Jason's nose, snapping the boy upright again and sending him falling onto his back. From there, Albert jumped over top of him, shouting, raging. He couldn't hear the cheering of fight anymore. He brought his hands down in open palm blows that avoided damaging his fingers. While under him, Jason flailed and tried to rise or hit anything he could. Albert grabbed the young man's hair at the top of his head, yanked it back to tilt his face up, and then brought his fore and middle finger down in a V-shape that dug both fingers into Jason's eyes. The tormentor screamed like a wounded beast and clawed at Albert's fingers. His cries became pleas that went on until Raziel and Liala reached him and pulled Ayler back. Albert is going to kill him. We probably shouldn't let him do that. Jason lay flat, breathing hard, crying, clutching at his eyes. I can't see. I can't see. Albert stopped yelling. He was breathing hard, still glaring hatefully at the defeated and broken unfortunate Jason. His body began shaking in the aftermath of his adrenal rush. And only then, far too late, did a teacher come rushing outside. The teacher, Albert's teacher, she saw Jason, saw Albert, and pallid. I wonder what she's thinking. Maybe wishing she'd said something when she saw what he did to me before, he wondered. His glare shifted to her as her face palled when she beheld the damage to the riding boy on the grass. This is your fault, bitch, he thought while she pulled the broken boy into her lap when she knelt down beside him. Let me see. Move your hands. She shouted in a panic down at Jason and then turned her head away from Ayler. Someone go get the nurse. Shh, cried as she forced the young man's hands away. Only then did Albert look around further and saw far less than cheerful faces in every direction. A mix of dismay, horror, and mute fascination. But the fun, that was over.